AITH for lying to a woman in order to force her to take a pregnancy test. Story 1. I was dating this woman, and we were having sex pretty regularly for some time. She would spend the nights with me after work, and the weekends as well, and we were very active in that sense. This period of time was relatively short, however, lasting about 4 weeks before this incident. I was home alone when I started getting tons of texts from 2 phone numbers. One was my woman and the other was her friend, who I'm pretty sure had feelings for her. The text said that she missed her period and her friend drove her to the doctor's. She had a blood test done among other traditional tests that showed she was pregnant. I immediately called her and asked her if she was okay, if there was anything I could do to help, and suggested we meet in person to talk about what we were going to do. She told me that she didn't want anyone to know. I lived with my mom at the time in a duplex type situation, and so they knew each other, and the woman made it a point to say she didn't want my mom to know. After she said that, her friend began spamming me, saying things like how awful what I had done is, and how it's my fault she's going through this, and that I need to make things right. I was pretty confused about the direction things were going. After I asked if she could come meet with me for a second time, she said I needed to go and change my relationship status to in a relationship on my socials. I told her that we had only been seeing each other for a few weeks, that we never had gone out on a proper date, only FWB type stuff, and that she had never indicated to me that she wanted to take things farther. I told her I wasn't comfortable changing my status online at the time, and that I really think we should talk in person, and that her friend does not need to be involved. At this point, she's crying and screaming over the phone that I need to love her and prove that I love her because I had done this to her, and how could I do this if I wasn't even willing to make her my girlfriend? I said, you know what? You're right, we should make things official. I said when people are having a child together, they get married. Having a child is a life-changing moment. We should be together in this important moment. I asked if her friend could bring her over so we can be together. As soon as I hung up the phone, I told my mom. She went and got some pregnancy tests, and when the woman and her friend arrived, I invited her in. I handed her a pregnancy test and she started to have a fit. I told her she had to take the test in order for me to be able to accept it and move forward. I also asked my mom to stay in the back near the door so she would feel like she was surrounded. She took the test. Surprise, she wasn't pregnant. At this point, she shoving blood work results that were on paper and looked very official into my face. So I handed her another test, and she was negative again. At this point, I knew all of this was some insane scenario her and her friend cooked up. The goal seemingly to make her my girlfriend? I told her to grab any of her things and leave. As she was walking out the door, I said, "You know, I liked you a lot. I would have made things official if you had asked me how I felt. But after this, I never want to see you again. Get it?" Thanks so much, everyone, for the amazing responses and conversations. I got a lot out of this. You all mean the world to me. I hope anyone who's going through anything similar, or has in the past, reads some of the wonderful things you all have said. Our advice. It sounds like you were put in a difficult and manipulative situation. It's understandable that you felt the need to verify the truth before making any major decisions. However, the way you went about it might not have been the best approach. Firstly, lying about being willing to make things official and getting married just to prompt her to take a pregnancy test was not fair to her or yourself. It's important to handle situations like this with honesty and integrity. Secondly, involving your mom in such a personal matter might have added unnecessary pressure and discomfort to the situation for everyone involved. Moving forward, it's crucial to communicate openly and honestly in relationships. If you feel pressured or manipulated, it's okay to take a step back and assess the situation calmly before making any decisions. And if someone is not respecting your boundaries or behaving manipulatively, it's okay to walk away from that relationship. In the future, strive for open communication, mutual respect, and honesty in your relationships. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation again, consider seeking advice from a trusted friend or professional counselor to navigate it in a healthier way. First comment. My college roommate did this. She had a boyfriend from a high-status family whose mom was a famous author. She wanted to marry him, but they hadn't been going out very long. To hurry him along, she told him she was pregnant. She became more and more unhinged. I felt sorry for her, but I could see that he was in anguish. He felt he had to marry her, but it was all too soon. I knew she wasn't pregnant and I thought her behavior was despicable. So I told him, and I asked another friend to call her mother to deal with her mental illness. We put her on a train at Easter break, and she didn't come back to school until the next semester. That was the end of our friendship, but I still feel right about my actions. I just looked up the boyfriend. He is now a lawyer in Colorado. I never talked to him again, but I hope he feels grateful that I saved his life. NTA. Second comment. Bassi. I know it's pretty crazy to think how some people could be growing whole other humans and not know. But pregnancy is different for everyone, and every pregnancy is unique too. I recently read this story on Reddit where this woman who has 3 kids recently had a cryptic pregnancy, where she had no pregnancy symptoms nor bump and had no idea she was pregnant until her water broke and she started going into labor. She was utterly baffled since it wasn't anything like her other 3 pregnancies, where she knew by 8 weeks each time. There was also this woman on the show I didn't know I was pregnant who was morbidly obese, so she chalked all of her pregnancy symptoms up to other health problems that she had. She started to go into labor and thought she was having a heart attack until a baby came out of her. There was another woman on that show who was on birth control and got pregnant and was still getting her period, so she thought nothing of it, and she had no bump since the baby was growing behind her rib cage. Then one day when she was unknowingly 9 months pregnant, she suddenly felt like she had to go to the bathroom really bad and thought she was pooping until she looked in the toilet and there was a baby was alive and healthy. Story 2. In-laws babysat and let our daughter eat cake and write on the table. My F41 husband M42 said I made this evening with his parents uncomfortable, but I think I had reason to be very peed off. So yesterday I went out with my daughter F8 and bought us some tiramisu. It was a homemade one, so a bit pricey, but it was a treat for her and me. I'd saved it for today so we could have it after dinner. Me and my husband went out to see a play during the day, and my in-laws babysat for her and our baby M7 months. My husband TXTs and tells them to make her a jacket potato if she's hungry, but he then gets a message saying she told us she isn't hungry, but she said you'd told her she could have some tiramisu. I was sat on the bus completely livid. I can't believe someone would be so stupid to accept the word of an 8-year-old and not even bother to check with us first. Why would you even allow a child to eat a dessert when she hasn't even eaten any dinner? We arrive home, and I'm annoyed but having to suck it up and be nice, and then I notice they've let her sit at the kitchen table with a permanent marker, and she's ended up scribbling over it. It's not a cheap table and cost us PS 25000, but apparently we made sure she was writing on a placemat, which was obviously total rubbish. My husband told me I was being rude and creating an atmosphere. AITH for being angry and annoyed? I think I'm justified. Our advice. It sounds like you have every right to feel upset and frustrated in this situation. Your in-laws crossed boundaries by allowing your daughter to eat dessert without having dinner first, and then letting her use a permanent marker on an expensive table without proper supervision. It's understandable that you would be concerned about these actions and feel disrespected as a parent. However, it's important to address the issue calmly and constructively with your husband and in-laws. Instead of escalating the situation by getting angry, try to have an open and honest conversation with them about your concerns. Explain why their actions upset you and discuss how you can prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. It might also be helpful to establish clear guidelines and expectations for your daughter's care when she's with your in-laws. This could include specific rules about meals, snacks, and activities, as well as guidelines for handling disciplinary issues. Ultimately, the goal should be to find a resolution that respects everyone's feelings and boundaries while ensuring the well-being of your children. First comment. Date me. AITH. She shouldn't have had a permanent marker, but everything else is bizarre on your part. If she's not allowed to do activities on a $3,000 table, why do you even have that table? Then you need to say that. I would never ever assume that a child can't color on a kitchen table. Obviously shouldn't have been a permanent marker, but at 8 years old, I also wouldn't think she'd be coloring all over the table. Same with food in the fridge. You need to leave instructions if you're a control freak, which it sounds like you are. If I'm doing you a favor and watching your kids and you get home and get nasty with me because I fed your child food in your home and they made a mess, I'm never watching your kids again. The only mistake on their part was the marker. You made a much bigger mistake by not giving any instructions, then freaking out at people doing you a favor and damaging your husband's relationship with his parents because you don't know how to plan or have a conversation, apparently. Second comment. Dao. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to go with AITH. I think it's an understandable mistake to make with the tiramisu. They maybe should have thought a bit more about it, but it's not that big of a deal. You're overreacting and really should be telling your child off for lying if you're going to tell anyone off for anything. I imagine they did give her a placemat. Accidents happen. I know my dad has made the exact same mistake with both me and my sister when we were growing up. Our table is basically just a graffiti board at this point. You're just annoyed because your ridiculously expensive table, like seriously, is it made out of gold? What goes on inevitably fell prey to what happens with everything when you have a child. Fun. If it's so important that the table doesn't get ruined, then why didn't it have a cloth over it, or let your in-laws know it was very expensive and must be protected at all costs? You know you have a child in the house and all children love to draw on things. The walls in my kitchen still have scribbles on from when I was like 7.